Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Sesternino, we are back here. This savage crew is back together for another round of Tough as Nails coverage here on Rob Has a Podcast. Very excited to get into season 2 of Blue Collar versus Blue Collar is back. Tough as Nails season 2 got underway on Wednesday night, and we are back to talk about everything that comes up in season 2. Back with me, people that covered season 1 of the podcast last season back in the summer. Here we are back again. Please welcome and we had almost no layoff. Just we did the Amazing Race, had a couple of weeks off, and now we're all back together. Here is our chief Amazing Race correspondent and Tough as Nails all around super fan, Jessica Lees. Jess, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. I'm ready to just dive in and get the job done. I'm all about getting the job done.
Yes. Okay. Just do you have a nickname you want to go by this season?
I feel like you can't.
Season.
Yeah, you can't give yourself a nickname, Rob. You have to wait for one to be given to you.
Okay. All right. We'll see if they come up along the way. Of course, a man of many nicknames. Please welcome a man that we just got done talking about the all-time funniest Jeff Probst moments on Tuesday night. To give it up for Mr. Mike Bloom.
So happy to be back at work talking Tough as Nails. I know that you said it's been a small time since we talked about the summer show. Really felt like summer with this show, considering the sweat that was pouring off of everybody over the course of 60 minutes.
Yeah. So sort of like Game of Thrones, that we had sort of like the cold weather season last season where everybody was like freezing, and now this is the fire season.
Yeah, well, what do you think the chances are that we get like a co-wrong incident where somebody collapses from heat exhaustion in the middle of a challenge?
I'm going to say 0 because they would have touted that in the previews for the season if that was a thing that happened.
Toughness personified. You get back up when your body betrays you.
Yeah. This is an intense show. People like cramping up and like trying to get through these challenges, and Mikey eyebrows a couple times needed to look like he needed an IV.
Mikey IV by the end of this.
Mikey IV, yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about everything from the premiere. We may have special guests that join us along the way this season as we talk about Tough as Nails. But yeah, this was fun. Tough as Nails was back.
Do we think, because last season, it ended up, incidentally, because the show ended up getting pushed forward, I think, due to a lot of things shifting around, they ended up doing a 2-hour premiere where they did the first episode of determining who the team members were in the first hour, and the second hour had an outright episode, challenges, and elimination. We didn't get it this time, just the forming of the teams in our first team challenge. Did we miss an elimination on night 1 of Tough as Nails?
I mean, honestly, I don't care whether or not we get an elimination, but I thought this was kind of a weird place to stop down. Like, how are we going to cram an elimination up front and then a whole second elimination on the second episode? The pacing of this felt a little strange to me, and I liked the opportunity. I thought we didn't need 2 hours. I'm glad we didn't get 2 hours because that would have been an awful lot in a very crazy week. But I felt like I liked the amount of content we got. I just don't know logistically how we go forward from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't remember that from when the show premiered over the summer, about how that there was 2 hours and then we got sort of like basically like a normal episode of Tough as Nails. For anybody who's a new viewer, we see the team competition play out in the first half hour, and then the individual competition and the overtime play out in the second half hour. Here we really just got sort of like a competition to determine the captains, and then a competition to determine who is going to be the first badge of honor winner. I do wonder if maybe it just had more to do with like, hey, it's going to be a minute before we start to have like our regular programming all like up and in production. So I'm wondering, like, could this be like a 16 episode season?
I do believe that the press release when the season was announced, I do think they're back for 10. I did some press with Phil. I believe he said 10 after that. I think, to Jess's point, my personal theory is that this first team challenge was sort of a bonus. And that I think next episode, when we go to the coast, it's going to be our regular format of team, individual, overtime. I think, last season they had, I believe, 8 team challenges, and so they had to do a tiebreaker. I do wonder if one of the things they instituted was, let's make it an odd number so that we don't have to have a tiebreaker at the end.
Interesting.
You just get the money. You don't have to get rid of somebody if you don't get the money. Okay.
So we'll do back-to-back team challenges, you think?
Yeah, I think this was just sort of like an addendum of, hey, you formed your teams. Now's the first test of you as a team. And then now that I think a change in location symbolizes like starting a cycle anew. You know, like, okay, now that we're at the seashore, now we're going to do it, the team challenge, individual challenge, OT affiliated with it. So this was more so just a bonus. Here's a get to know you challenge where you happen to build a garage.
So, Mike, are you saying that you're not fully, truly a team until you've done a challenge together and then had a van ride together?
Exactly. That's really how you cast these things in cement, if you will. Otherwise, you're just aggregate and sand and water, but you need to mix together to form that concrete.
Well, Mike, I know that you had done an interview with Phil where you were reporting about how the Savage Crew and Dirty Hands names would be back again. The legacy of the two storied franchises, the Savage Crew and the Dirty Hands, would be back. Were you pumped up to see them returning, the team names?
It's so interesting because I think when we first saw this and this was first instituted, I know it reminded us a lot of The Apprentice, when this was a hallmark of every season was, okay, no matter what your configuration, you get to determine a team name. And that's how we got such luminaries as Backbone and Kotu, Kings of the Universe, once upon a time. And so we wondered, would they do this every season? Should the show be renewed? But I think Phil more so looked at it as, and what he described it to me as, it's more like a sports franchise, where now you sort of have teams that you follow. You have your teams that you track season to season, and you might change loyalties based on who you feel about each team. But otherwise, now you can say, this was Dirty Hands storyline last season. Will it continue this season despite a completely different crop of contestants? So it's really a brand new way to look at the idea of tribal concepts. Imagine if season 2 of Survivor and Beyond was, okay, every tribe is Pagong or Tagi. You really have people coming in and be like, well, we're not going to get wiped out like those Pagongs.
Well, Mike, do you see yourself as a Dirty Hands person or a Savage Crew person?
Yeah, this is because I was Savage. I bled orange last season. No offense to Dirty Hands. I think I still find myself Savage this time because, to be quite honest, it cemented that for me when Scott said that this edition of Savage Crew is a bunch of loudmouths, which I am fully. And so I have to support my fellow loudmouths here and go with Savage Crew 2.0.
Yeah. Jess, I saw myself as a Dirty Hands person last season. I don't know if that allegiance has transferred over.
It's hard to say at this early juncture, Rob, because I don't think we've fully seen what these people can do. They've started to get to know each other. They all seem really cool. And we've seen glimpses of where they're going to be successful and unsuccessful, but it is really hard to tell yet whether we're going to have that same spirit and that same fire.
Yeah, because Jess, do you think that maybe this does sort of open the door for potentially like some season 1 standouts for like Roofer Lee to Skype in and say like, hey, Dirty Hands, and listen, you have a lot to uphold. Back when I was out there representing for Dirty Hands.
This is like those moments on the Bachelorette when like the previous Bachelorette comes in and sits with the current Bachelorette to say, well, you just have to trust this process. And, everybody knows you're looking for what you're looking for. And if you just give yourself over to the process and follow the formula, you're going to come out on top.
Just make sure you're here for the right reasons, everybody.
Yes.
Now, could they do a thing, though, much like in sports, how teams often, players often trade teams? We saw that from the most recent Super Bowl MVP. Could this happen where maybe someone switches team halfway through, or Roofer Lee comes back for season 3 and got traded over to Savage Crew?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Mike, do you think that we'll have a motivational pep talk from Murph for the Savage Crew at some point?
Yeah, emphasis on motivational.
Guys, just don't give up. Hang in there. Okay? Everything's going to work out.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, there were a lot of restrictions put in place due to filming during the
Sure.
pandemic. If that wasn't the case, though, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was in the cards for alumni to like make appearances. Like if they had gone to the farm, I could have seen like Melissa making an appearance, for instance.
Yes. Now, Jess, there was one thing that I saw on the episode last night, and we spent many days talking to Phil about everything from Tough as Nails season 1, and there was one thing I saw, and I wondered, did that potentially come from our conversations? Do you know what it is?
Did we manifest something, Rob?
I think that we maybe. I mean, we'll have the chance to ask Phil that question. But did you notice that the damn vans had the decals for Savage Crew and Dirty Hands? And Jess, I feel like that was something that you talked about.
Yeah, I thought we needed branding. And I even presented some designs.
They did not use your art concepts.
I'm a little disappointed that one of the vans did not look like the Mystery Machine and the other one did not look like the A-Team van. But if we manifested this, then I am totally okay with it. And if not, I'm okay with it too, because it's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't need credit for a good idea.
We really got to spend a lot of time getting to meet the cast of Tough as Nails season 2. Should we talk about some standouts here in season 2?
Listen, let's start with Selly. We got to start with Selly. Selly's fantastic. I love Selly.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and she brings a toughness. And I think Tough as Nails is always trying to do this. They're trying to bring someone in who embodies a type of toughness that you don't immediately think of. Like, you're gonna get a guy that you're getting your construction workers. You're getting your iron workers and your stonemasons and your ship captains. But then you have this oddball pick that you don't think about them as being super tough until you realize, that job may actually be tougher than all of these other jobs in some ways. And I think Selly really embodies that. She's kind of a good pick of the moment, almost like Michelle last season, but more topical.
Yeah, Michelle, if you will.
Yes.
I also just love Selly's personality. There's a great moment even in the very beginning before she even speaks where when Mikey Eyebrows reveals his nickname, she just gives a look like, who is this bozo? And, on the other side of that, when she ends up on Mikey Eyebrows' team and she ends up winning, she's like, squatting and clapping for the cash. She's smelling the wad of money. So Selly is a big personality on top of, as Jess says, an incredibly unique way for the show to touch upon the sort of the reality of the situation. And I think this was something that was also spoken about last season as well, a bit of as much Robbie sort of poke about blue collar versus blue collar, toughness can be embodied by a lot of different individuals. And the timeliness allowed us to question what toughness meant in a whole new way. So even just the inclusion of Selly, let alone just the fantastic TV that she is a really great concept.
Yeah. Great find by Selly. She struggled in the opening challenge, but she didn't really suffer from it. Like, it wasn't like that she lost confidence in herself.
Yeah, well, I think if you don't know anything about what you're doing, you set an extremely low bar for yourself, right? She's like, all that matters is that I finished. I don't know what aggregate is. I just shoveled a bunch of concrete and I've never done that before. So I'm proud of myself no matter what. That's a very relatable attitude, I feel like.
Yeah. I do wonder to come in as sort of like, hey, I don't work in construction. Like that anything I do, like, hey, this isn't my day job. Like, I feel like there's no chance of 5-holing anything if you are coming into this from certain professions, Jess.
Yeah, but there's something to be said for, and I think this is something that the show loves to hammer home, is that when you work in a job like this, you are ready. Yeah, you are ready to do just about anything. And the skill sets that you acquire in your actual line of work are transferable in a lot of ways. And so part of the joy is in discovering exactly how you take your own strengths and apply them to the task at hand.
Yes. Okay. And we have a visitor here joining us to talk about everything that we saw in the Tough as Nails season premiere. He's an old friend, that he is the alpha male in our theme song. Here is the Emmy award-winning host and executive producer of Tough as Nails, who's either frozen or especially stoic in this moment, Phil Keoghan.
I don't know if it's either.
Yes.
He might be frozen in concrete.
Yes. Phil, can you hear us?
This is an elaborate troll.
He's connecting
Yeah.
to audio.
It might be.
Yes. Phil,
I apologize for my tardiness, ladies
you're
and gentlemen.
fine. You're fine. Look, we're not going to dock you your pay here for punching in after
Well,
we got started.
I did know it was time to go to work, and I guess I didn't hear the work whistle blow, and anyway, no, I
Yes.
was doing other things.
Phil,
Was it not loud enough?
I'm looking at you right now on our video, and I'm looking at my Tough as Nails 2021 calendar.
Yeah,
and
well,
I see
you
this
know,
is your Tough as Nails uniform. You have adopted the same as the cast, that you have one outfit now.
I gotta ask
Now-
though, do you have multiple shirts like that, or is that the same shirt?
No, I wear the same stinky shirt, but is the Toughest Nails logo in the right place at least? You know, is that in the right, or should it be on the other side of the frame?
No, looks good.
It does? Okay. Well, you know, continuity is very important to me. And
That's true.
what I do is I make a note of the last time people have seen me, and then I try to wear the same thing so they feel comfortable. So that was the last time you saw me, and here I am back again, like, you know, the live version of what you got on your calendar.
Yeah.
I have not personally seen the calendar. So is it quality?
It's great. It's great.
Yeah,
it's
I love
great.
it. My one complaint is that there's, for a calendar that says Tough as Nails in big letters on the front, there is no place to put a nail.
A nail. There's no hole to actually
Yeah.
put on the
So
wall.
I had to,
Is that why you got abuse for using tape? Putting it
yes.
up on the wall? Yes. Okay. All right. So that was I guess a flaw. We'll have to put
It's a project. It's a project. You get
It is a
It was a
project.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had
look, I haven't even said Happy New Year. Hello, nice to see you. Rob has a haircut. I haven't said any of that. Or had a haircut. So Happy New Year. Rob
do it
had
myself, Phil.
a haircut,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
everybody's looking good, and hopefully you're all healthy and you haven't had
You
COVID.
too.
I did, but I didn't have symptoms, so it was all
Okay,
good.
well, okay. I'm glad to hear it. Anyway, it's nice to be back. You know, I have to tell you, there was a whole discussion in our story meeting this morning in our production about whether I should come back to the show and be with you again or not.
Oh.
And there was support, and then there
Yes.
was also you know, Phil, we're sick to death of hearing you talk about the show. So could you just shut up and let the three of them talk? Because when you're not there, they get real and they talk, and we'd rather hear them get real than you talk about the show. So I'm kind of torn. And so one of our young producers said to me, Phil, or somehow we got to this conversation, that I need to treat you like I'm on a date, and that I need to leave before we order dessert or coffee, and that there should be no walk of shame. That was the other thing, no walk of shame. So I've got to
A little
cut
bit of
out
walk of
early
shame.
at some point so that you guys carry on and get real, and then they can hear you talk instead of me. That's kind of where we got to.
Wow. Never thought podcasting would be relating to dating in so many ways, but here we are making
Yeah.
comparisons to 2021.
We need to podcast with more producers, that they totally have like a totally different way of looking at everything.
Yeah,
we
they
could
got
get
real
people
with
that are
me.
not you.
Yeah,
Bring some of them on.
Well, I could, but that does make me nervous.
Don't you live with one?
I do.
Yeah.
You're gonna say hello, Louise? She's
Shy.
No, well,
Yeah.
that was the podcast there.
Yes.
You're gonna say hello? No, you. I see. Okay. And Louise is one of the ones that's saying, you know, enough. I think she's just sick to death of being in quarantine with me,
Mhm.
and it's like too much. I know. See, she loves hearing you guys. So maybe I should just go. Should I go? I mean,
But don't
No,
don't
you
stop
stay
by for
here.
40 minutes
We-
and then
we didn't-
leave.
The entree didn't even come.
well, hold on. Why don't you say to Louise, we want just a little bit of Phil, and just so she knows that you want me here, that I'm not forcing myself on you. Say something.
Yeah,
please.
This
no,
podcast took a turn.
Yes. Phil is not foisting himself on
No.
us.
We want a smidge of Phil. We always want a smidge of Phil.
Okay. Apparently that's the
Smidge.
key word, smidge. All right. So take a smidge of me and I'll cut out. Okay.
Yeah. Phil, we were talking about in the premiere episode, we just saw the one team competition that do we expect in the next episode that we'll have the regular format team competition and then an individual elimination?
Yes. Yeah. No, there was, if you remember when we spoke last season, we ended up putting episodes 1 and 2 together. We had 2 challenges to get 2 winners to pick 2 teams. And then we decided we wanted to get into it faster. So we just said first 2 to finish the first challenge, pick a team. And then we wanted to get right into a team challenge in the first hour. So that was motivated by what happened last time.
Yeah.
Can I also ask, Phil, when people applied for the show, did you expressly ask them to enter a nickname for themselves, or it just so happened that about half the cast has nicknames with which they go by this season?
Yeah, and some of them are great, and people seem to be picking up on them. Last time we sort of added on the whole Roofer Lee and Drywall Danny.
Mm-hmm.
In this season, it was more just about their nicknames, and the whole thing with Zeus. He has got an amazing physique and certainly a lot of power. And I do love Knuckles, and Freight Train is just, he's just a gem. It was just that we ended up with a whole bunch of people with nicknames.
I noticed there's kind of a spectrum of how often a nickname is used on a person.
Right.
Like, I do not know what Swifty's actual name is because you just call him Swifty all the time. But then I think I heard Knuckles exactly once. Now the rest of the time she was just Liz.
Right. So I didn't want to be too familiar out of the gate with calling her Knuckles when I just got to know her. So I called her Liz for the first challenge. But in hindsight, she did say that her nickname is Knuckles. And quite frankly, we've gone through a whole casting process with her and we got to know her. So in hindsight, I think I probably would have just gone with Knuckles right out of the gate. But I was trying to be, I didn't want to be like overly familiar. Like, I know you and I can call you Knuckles right out of the gate. So, but in hindsight, she would have been totally fine with it. She's so relaxed. She's not like that sort of thing wouldn't bother her.
Phil, could you tell us why is she Knuckles?
I did ask her that. I didn't get a really good answer. I think it has something to do with the fact that when you smooth out concrete, you use your legs and your hands, and I guess she's on her knuckles. That might be something for you to ask her about and see if we can get a proper answer. I did not get a definitive answer. You heard the reason that they call Freight Train Freight Train. Did you hear that one? Mm-hmm. Because of his wife saying that when he played softball and he was coming around the bases, once he got going, there was no stopping him. There was no coach there that was able to say, "Hey, Freight Train, stop there on second." He just kept coming through to third.
Yeah. More like Runaway Train than Freight Train then.
Yes. Runaway Train. Like, what was that 70s movie, Silver Streak or whatever it was, where the train ran away? And you guys are too young for that.
Well, I know Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, kind of same premise.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. The train that just doesn't stop rolling. It's
like Speed, but a train.
Yeah. And Mikey Eyebrows, I presume you picked up that wonderful line, my love for concrete just can't be, I can't even explain. What did he say?
The love I have for concrete goes beyond words is what he said.
and clearly it does, because
Mikey Eyebrows, I would say, is definitely like, I'd say the biggest character, I think, out of this first group. He was at least the most outspoken. I could imagine Phil, even though finding this group of characters, they're more used to this idea of the show than the first season characters. There probably is still some adjustment to getting used to the cameras. Mikey Eyebrows seems ready to go. He's like cackling. He's yelling, "Let's go." He's jumping around. He's pouring water over himself like he's won the big game. Like, Mikey Eyebrows was in it from the very beginning.
Did you notice that happened 20 minutes into the challenge? Mm-hmm. That's the best part.
He runs hot. It did remind me a little bit of Flashdance, another old reference, movie reference. Where the hair and the water.
But doesn't that take place where Swifty works at the Steelworks?
At the Steelworks, and that's all backlit with the droplets falling down. I met Mikey Eyebrows in New York back in October of of 2019 when we were doing the casting tour, and he wasn't available to come on the first season because of work commitments, and then he reapplied, and then he popped back up on the scene.
Well, that's a question I wanted to ask actually about the casting process, because obviously things are very different now. You couldn't go from city to city and like let a giant throng of blue collar workers come up and overwhelm you with their
push-ups.
character. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you handle casting this time around?
Well, it was the good thing about going from a season 1 to a season 2 is that in the beginning, you're almost like you're trying to convince people that it'd be a good idea to be on this new show. What's the show? Oh, it's called Tough as Nails. What's it about? How's it work? What's the tone of the show? How do you treat people? Do you treat them with respect? Is it heartfelt? Is it about, exploiting them to make content? How does the show work? And so there's always a lot of questions. People are a little more cautious. Now, the group of people too that we're going after, a lot of them are not looking to, like, if you remember Roofer Lee, I remember it would sometimes take 3 weeks before we could get in touch with him. He's not like, easily available to like just call on the phone because they got one phone that they're sharing in the family. They're not like on there tweeting and Instagramming all the time. So they don't really care too much about, a lot of them, about being on TV or being famous. So, and they're the ones that you really want because they are really the salt of the earth. They're the ones that really do all the hard work. And so it was a big battle making sure that we put in all that effort in season 1 to finding the right people. And I think we did a pretty good job. Season 2, thousands. I mean, it was, we were inundated because once people saw what we were doing, and once people saw that we were treating people respectfully and honoring what they did, and that we were deliberately leaving some of the rougher stuff out because it's just not what the show, the zeitgeist of the ethos of the show is. When people realize that, I think they were like, oh, I want to be a part of that. I can see that I could be a part of that. So, we went from thousands down to hundreds, and then we started pooling people into different trades. And it was great to get like an application from someone like Zeus, who's living in Hawaii and who is a lineman and who is Pacific Islander. And then someone like Angel or Raida, whose family comes originally from Venezuela. So we were just able to play a lot of different notes as far as the casting went. And we had a lot, we were spoiled for choice. And already we've been getting inundated just with all the press around season 2. We've been getting inundated with people applying to be on a season 3 or a 4, So
wow. That's incredible.
It makes our job a lot easier because we're spoiled for choice.
I wanted to ask as well, when the contestants were introducing themselves, what I noticed, maybe, I don't know if this stuck out particularly about season 2, there's a lot of talk about unions, especially coming from Mikey Eyebrows. He name drops his union several times, most due in part to the fact that it is his family and that's who raised them. Was that a facet of season 1 that just didn't make the edit? Was this like a purposeful choice to more so invoke the idea of unions and the group mentality in these types of jobs for this season?
It wasn't something that we, pushed for. If you remember in season 1, Tara talked a lot about the union, and when she was working as a dental hygienist, how she didn't get the support there in dentistry. They were like, when are you coming back to work? As opposed to, when she went off to have a baby, the union was there to support her. So we did touch on the unions. And part of the reason that I made the decision to keep the Dirty Hands and Savage Crew names was realizing the importance of the unions to a lot of these people that we have on the show, and that rather than coming up with a whole new family, like that these new people coming in would be part of an existing family, which is what a union really is. Like when you become a journeyman and you come into a union, you're a part of a brotherhood and sisterhood that extends back generations and will continue to extend generations into the future. You're always a part of that. A little bit like in the military where you're part of the Air Force or Army, Navy, whatever it is, or the alumni that you have at a university. You can be at a game and you don't know the person, but they're supporting the same team, and now you're a part of something. So that was sort of the thinking behind keeping those names. And And so we didn't decide to necessarily push harder on the unions. They did. And I think it's just the nature of where they come from. And what you'll see is there's actually another discussion about the unions from Angel, who was not part of a union, but they kind of explained to Angel why being part of union would be a good idea for him. So yeah, it just happened organically. It wasn't something we set out to do.
Yeah, well, and as I recall, you borrowed a lot of iconography from unions for the look and
Yes.
feel of the show.
Yeah, the badges of honor.
The badges, yeah.
Yeah, we're inspired by that. And you would have noticed that I took what you said to heart and reduced the size of the badges of honor because I did not want to come back and face the wrath of, was there did something blow up at Kinko's? Was there a young apprentice doing the photocopying, printing, and just, oh my God, it was meant to be this big and it blew up to this massive football-sized icon. So thank you for, you also saved me on printing costs because I didn't have to print things as big. So thank you.
You funneled that money into printing decals for the sides of the van, I noticed.
Yes. Well, that was, again, I love finding organic ways of IDing things in the show rather than having to use graphics. Graphics are hugely important to getting across things, but the more I think you can incorporate them organically into the content, the better. So that was just a way of say, like when the van pulls up, and especially when you're on a season 2 and now you've got to tell people that, here's a new group of Savage Crew and a new group of Dirty Hands.
Yeah. And then when you keep the same team names, you don't have to change the van. And also I have to give credit to Rob because Rob was the one that noticed the decals before I did.
Nice job, Rob.
Thank you, Phil.
Good attention to detail. Very nice.
Yeah, and I thought we had some really great talk in the damn van last night. That it's very organic to see the teams being able to interview themselves and sort of like get to know each other like on that first ride home from the challenge.
Can I ask though? It seems like the camera quality seemed different in the van than during the challenges. Did you use a special type of camera for the small space that was the van?
Yeah, and full disclosure, we had a little bit of an issue with the lighting in the first drive time in show 1. So you're actually going to see the quality. What's very difficult is adjusting those cameras to change from when the sun is up and then the sun goes down, and we don't have people in the vans with them. And so what happens is sometimes the camera can default to a setting and then it starts to get very noisy as it's stretching to try to get light, and you're not in there to adjust it. So we had a little, I'll be honest with you, we were a little disappointed with how the cameras, and we put some new technology in the vans to try to lift the quality, and ironically in the first ride we didn't. So you should see an improved, because we sort of figured it out. We're like, oh no, okay. Now what we've got to do is we got to set it to here and make sure that the camera doesn't default to this and that. And so you should see it better. But the idea is we put special little vanity lights in for everybody this season. We put in more microphones. Like I said, in talking to you guys last time, we didn't know how the drive time was going to play. And then it ended up being like this thing where everybody loved it. And so we were like, wow, okay, let's try to improve the quality with the drive times. And I've heard through friends who take pitches that there's some people pitching shows with that element in it. Also the dual, individual competition, team competition, that's creeping into some formats that are being pitched right now. So I'm, it's good too. I mean, I feel like, it's nice that we were the first and that people liked it, but it's also interesting to hear that people are going that way. Because there was a time where it was like, what do you mean people get a second chance? What do you mean people don't go home? No, you're in or you're out. That's it. The tribe has spoken. Or I guess.
Interesting. Like German Jeff Probst making an appearance on the podcast. Can I ask, Phil, because I'm sure you were trying to decide, especially with that opening challenge, what was going to be determining team captains is a vital role. I do find it interesting, to be honest, that you chose a challenge in which two people who had experience in doing their daily lives, it's a challenge that really speaks to them. And I think it's no coincidence that they end up winning the challenge. I mean, was that the expected outcome for you? Why did you decide to start off with that concrete challenge?
Because we didn't know who we were going to cast when we came up with the concrete challenge.
Oh,
So
okay.
the challenges come before the cast, right? So we start working on and finalizing the challenges because we have to get permits and we have to get locations and stuff locked down early, way earlier than like when we're still in the hundreds with the cast. So the fact that Young ended up at a fire challenge is a total coincidence. We didn't like say, "Oh, we've got Young, he's a fireman. Let's do a fire challenge." You know, and coincident, you know, there's going to be coincidences and there are things that happen throughout the season where just happens to be that somebody on the crew has experience in a particular challenge. So no, we didn't know that it was going to be that. And by the way, to be fair, Knuckles doesn't make concrete. She smooths concrete out, but she doesn't mix concrete. She doesn't make concrete. That's not what she does. She has no experience making concrete. A big truck comes in and pours mixed concrete. She smooths out the concrete. So the only advantage she really had was in the smoothing out of the concrete in the form, which she did with a 4x2 or 2x4, as you say in America. So I don't know if she distinctly had an advantage. And Mikey Eyebrows, yeah, he's mixed concrete before. But again, he generally gets supplied concrete to put the bricks in. So I think there what that was about was, you know, you look at Knuckles' technique working with that sledgehammer, just like Araida, who uses a sledgehammer at work, or Sarah, who's just super strong. I think it was just applying life skills. Now, you've got young Sally saying, "What the hell's aggregate?" She has no idea, but she still got in there and did her best. Now, if we were doing the challenges if we were doing the casting before we did the challenges, we would say, well, we can't really have Sally making concrete. She doesn't even know what aggregate is. But the whole point of Tough as Nails is that people from all walks of life get thrown into different things. And I had somebody criticize or say to me, how is it fair that, you know, you put a nurse into making concrete? Well, the show's called Tough as Nails. It's about people who are the best of the best in their chosen trade. I would vouch to say that Sally's mental toughness is through the roof because of what she does. She's not meant to come onto the show being good at making concrete. She's there because of her mental toughness, and she has this ability to fit in and do things. She's not as strong as some of the other people on the show, but that's not why she's there. But that doesn't also mean she's not strong. She's also strong, but it's a combination. It's not just one thing. And so, again, I think, you know, we're still showing and proving to people, look at how well Knuckles did against Zeus. I mean, Zeus is I mean, the guy looks like the statue of David, you know, I mean, the guy is ripped, and she, with life skills and technique, outworked him, period. So, and that's not to say that Zeus isn't going to excel in something else. So, and judge a book by its cover. I mean, I think that whole challenge proved that.
Yeah. Phil, one of the things that I really loved, a season 2 edition, was the use of like the 3D animations, especially when we got to the second challenge and we got to see like the blueprint come to life. Is that something we're going to see more of in season 2?
Yeah, we have a new graphics person who's come on, and we just wanted to up our game. You know, a lot of it just comes down to finding the right people who are really good at doing these types of things, and also money and cost and where you allocate your resources. So we just decided it was very important to up our game in that regard. The ones that worked really well, like in episode 3 of season 1, the blueprint of the tire and the overtime with Melissa and Young, we got a lot of compliments about that blueprint and people understanding how it all worked. And so we're, you know, again, you just look at the feedback and you go, oh, people like the graphics. It helps them track. It helps them follow. And so what we used, you know, speaking to what I talked about before with regards to what you see in the scene and trying to use the practical elements, like when we filmed the blueprint sitting on the back of the truck, and you could see measurements and numbers, and you could see the outlay. That gives visual information that avoids you having to go to a full screen graphic. But then we also wanted to make it super clear that people don't necessarily know what a truss is. And we can't assume that people know what a wall is either. Like, we have to say, this is a wall. There's 4 walls. There's 10 trusses. A truss looks like this. There's 10 of them. There's 4 walls. Put them together, you have the frame for a garage. So I think you have to be very, very literal, because you have to remember too that people are watching once, not like us. We're watching it over and over and over and over again. So in a one pass, do people understand that there's 4 walls and that there's 10 trusses and that you put them together and then it looks like this? Let's make that super clear. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed them.
Yeah, and it's a complicated challenge too. It's a lot of detail and a lot of things they get wrong that if you hadn't seen how it all comes together, you would have no idea what they're talking about. And I think this did a really good job of elucidating what exactly they had to do and how they could get it wrong. Like the whole thing with the windows, that would have been complete nonsense and gibberish if I hadn't seen what the diagram looked like.
Yeah, just as being humble, that she said that her mom told her that they could have put that garage together, no problem.
Yeah. And I don't doubt it. I mean, look, like I said at the beginning of that challenge, it's a giant jigsaw puzzle. I mean, I have a feeling Michelle would have absolutely crushed that. She's so good with details, so good with following plans. She's got so many different life skills. I think Michelle would have absolutely crushed that. Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is the thing that I love so much about the show, is that it isn't just, we're not just measuring one thing. You got to have some smarts. You got to be able to plan, and then trying to coordinate. I love that bite from Sarah from Savage Crew at the end, where she says, this is legit. Like, we brought together a nurse and a pilot and a welder and an iron worker and a bricklayer. We pulled all of these people together and we built this garage. Like, I love hearing that, because that's what it is. It's fine to be good at what you do, but how do I now get, like, if the 4 of us were a team, how do you work that dynamic? Like, figure stuff out. It's in the heat of the battle, in the moment.
Was this the longest challenge you've ever done? I find it staggering that 3 hours they were able to construct a full garage, but it did seem almost like a bookend to how taxing the final challenge of season 1 was. This being the first challenge of season 2 is really, like, from your perspective, a big way of saying, okay, this is what you're in for.
Yeah. And look, there's a couple of things at play. First of all, the big decision makers at CBS, they love that these challenges take a long time and that we see the transition of time. They want the audience to know that the show is called Tough as Nails for a reason. It's tough. It's meant to, I mean, they put an entire garage together in 3 hours. It's crazy, or 3.5 hours, or whatever it was. The sun was going down. We were like, we got to get on. I got to hand out the money. We don't have lights here. We got to get this done. We're not in a studio with, can you, the lights are on and you're just carry on shooting until you're done. No, our big light in the sky is going down, and it's like we're calling it a day. And so we were trying to get through. But look, I will tell you this: the difference in terms of the challenges of shooting season 1 to 2, night and day. Like, we had some challenges that we had to scout 7 times, because if you think of Big Brother is one house and it has one COVID plan. It's tough shooting anywhere, but when you have to have a COVID plan. Where do the cars park? Where do the toilets get set up? Where do people drink water? What way do you walk into work? What way do you walk out of work? How do we stop people crossing each other in hallways? How do you stop red zones mixing with green zone people who cannot, who are in lockdown, in quarantine, and then people who are going home to their families, and how do we have them communicate but not get near each other? What are the protocols with masks? All this stuff, right? That's one location. We had more than 24. So we would have a challenge where we've got to submit a whole COVID plan with an overhead view of where the cars park and where the water goes and where the toilets go and all of that stuff. And then they'll either go tick, 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 tick. Oh, no. Too close there with the parking. Sorry. Location's out. Find another one. Okay. So you go out and you got to find another one. No. Imagine one location took 7 times before they finally said yes. So the amount of resources and time and energy that went into that meant that we were jammed in other things, like it cut into our amount of testing time. We had some locations that were getting dropped out just before we were shooting. All the time, this pressure that one person getting COVID going through a crew of 250 could shut the whole thing down in an instant. What would we do? These people have got like limited time. They can't lock them down again for another 2 weeks and then pick things up. And then every morning we'd have a briefing and our COVID officer would say, "You're doing a great job, everybody, but I just want to let you know, down the road, there's a show that just got shut down because one of the actors came in contact with somebody who had COVID and they're on hold now." And like the weight of all of that. And so our executive in charge of production, Terry, he carried the weight of that. He's the one that's responsible with his team for getting us through without an incident. And I don't think I realized just how much it was weighing on all of us, because I was so focused on, I was like, I've got to just switch on to thinking about the show and focus on that, because if I start thinking about too much of the other stuff, it'll affect the quality of the show. And it wasn't until I got to New Zealand, Louise and we went to New Zealand and we were in quarantine. And then I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, oh my God, like what could have happened? And I went through all this. I finally, it all hit me. I was like, oh my God, we are so lucky that we got through. Like we finished this thing. So
it's amazing to me that you didn't downsize it, knowing all of that and knowing how much more complicated it was. I thought for sure you'd like rent out somebody's farm and just do all the challenges in one spot.
Yeah. I mean, we're already a lean, scrappy show. I mean, I think we might be on the leanest reality show that's ever come out of CBS. And we're also trying again to continue to produce this show in 4K, which adds a whole other layer of expense and also effort, you know? So, and that was important to us. We weren't going to cut any corners with the quality of the cinematography or any of that. So I think, you know, we could have gone to a farm and done everything in one place, but I think we just wanted that. We wanted to lift our game. We wanted to be better than we were in season one. And even with the restrictions of COVID, we just wanted to be better.
I'm curious, Phil, was that the same Quarry that you went to back in season one? I don't want to be Quarry blind, but it did look a lot like where we were last time, so I wasn't sure if it was the same location.
It was on the same farm, but it was a different that's a massive property. It was on that same location, different spot. We didn't shoot in the same spot, but yeah, we had to repeat some like that location just out of just trying to streamline things, because we knew the location we already had shot that we could easily get COVID plans together and get them whipped together. So it cut down on scouting time. It cut down on a lot of things. So yeah, we did reuse that location.
Yeah, Phil, as a producer, I'm sure it must have been a dream to have that scenario in that challenge, to have the two opposing strategies to have the Savage crew to start working on the walls, and then to have Dirty Hands to start working on knocking out the trusses. And you had this one point where, okay, they have 10 trusses done. This other team hasn't even finished one wall. They're out in like a big lead, and then just to see then the whole thing ultimately end up, flipping over, was a very exciting way for the first challenge to play out.
Yeah, and we had a lot of like TV magic moments, and that was one of them. And I really thought Dirty Hands were going to take it, and they really had it until they got to that window. And when they got to the window, they got stumped. And they got I think maybe a little cocky, because I think they thought, wow, look how quickly we whipped through these trusses. And Scott kept saying, no, you do the hard part first, then you do the trusses. And then that great bite from Sarah about how, you always do in fabricating work, in your work, you always do the hard stuff first and you do the fabrication later. So, you learn something there about how people work. While you're not tired, you do the hard stuff. While you're fresh, you do the hard stuff. And then when you get tired, you just do the finessing. Yeah. So it was good to see.
Yeah, the only downside was that because Savage Crew did the hard part first, like their bodies, at least from an edit perspective, seemed to be the one that was turning on them more quickly than Savage Crew, where it seemed like everyone was cramping up at the same time. I can imagine out there watching it, it must have been something to see, especially with how vocal Savage Crew is as a team, to have them sort of like hooting and hollering as they're grabbing themselves.
Yeah, I think also Dirty Hands just did a better job at hydrating themselves. They were talking a lot more about it. Hey, make sure you drink, everybody. Make sure you keep hydrated. And at one point, I was like, Swifty, he was not sweating, and we were out there and it was super hot. And I was like, Swifty, you need to drink. Like, you need to have something to drink. And so I just think the other team did a better job at hydrating themselves, looking after themselves.
Yeah, they should go with the Mikey Eyebrow strategy. Just like stick your head in the water.
Yeah, he was ready to like get in there and dunk himself.
Yeah. I mean, is that like a COVID, like, no, like we need that water.
No, that
Please.
set was all sprayed down. So, that was the other thing that kind of delayed everything. So the art department, challenge department, they were all green zoned. So they were going home at night, and everybody had to be super careful. But myself and the crew and myself and the cast and the camera operators, we were all red zone. We were in quarantine. So if the art department went in to like set stuff up, we then had to get our COVID team to go in and spray everything down. And then we had to wait 10 minutes, and we were like looking at the clock going, that sun's going down. Oh boy, I wish we were shooting right now. Oh boy, it would be great to go in there and start setting stuff up and blocking out shots. And oh boy, 10. And then boom, finally, boom, we can go in. And then you see something that you want changed, and you're kind of making choices like, all right, but if we do that, that means we have to get out. Green zones, we got to spray, wait 10 minutes. They got to come in, change that, and we got to spray and walk back and lose another 10 minutes. So you start to assess all of the ramifications of what happens with making last minute tweaks on things that normally you just be like, hey, Sid, come over here for a second. Do you think we can move that thing over there? Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, and done. But no, not this process. This was different.
Yeah, I know that you plan out the challenges ahead of time, but I could imagine in some other world it's Mikey Eyebrows, you want water? Here's all the water you want. We're going to the boats next time. Get wet. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I had a random production-y question, because this was just something I noticed. We made a big deal last season. Every time you were about to start the challenge, you made quite a production out of blowing that giant work whistle. And you mentioned to us that it had nearly destroyed your hearing on at least one occasion, and it was very, very loud. So this season, there were two instances where you would have pulled the work whistle and the camera zooms way out, and at one point we hear it faintly and another point we don't hear it. Did you stop blowing the whistle in person?
We still have not sorted out the whistle problem. So it turns out that those whistles are designed to be heard from basically the other side of the United States away. So we were not able to dampen the sound of the whistle to get to a point where it wasn't going to kill my hearing. So to be honest with you, with everything else going on, it became a very low priority. So it ended up being that we had to use another sound, and then put the actual sound of the work whistle in over the top. But well noted, and I'm hoping that we get a chance to do a season 3, and if we do, we will have the work whistle whistling a fine tune.
Yeah.
That one. Yes, that tune.
So what sound did you use as a stand-in?
It was just like one of those little horn, the ones that
air horn.
Air horn. That little air. Thank you. How did I not know what an air horn was? Yes, an air horn. And so we just had it mounted underneath, and I had to reach in there, and but it was, not something we showed on camera, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, busted.
Yeah. Busted. I'm sorry.
What were your takes on the new teams, Phil? I know you said in the moment, like, this looks like an evenly stacked group of people, but at the time, did you have any sort of like personal takes on the dynamics of those particular 6 people on Savage Crew versus Dirty Hands?
Well, I do feel like the teams are really balanced. And, I can't say, but obviously in season 1, getting things tied up and then going into a tiebreaker was really exciting. And so that's what you want every time, I think, because you want the stakes to be really high. And the way that the number of team challenges works, we're set up for a tiebreaker, meaning there's 9 team challenges. So you hope that both Savage Crew and Dirty Hands come into the tiebreaker for a piece. And that's why the picks, it's a new format and you don't know whether the picks are going to work. I think last season and season 1 on paper, Dirty Hands were definitely person for person, probably overall, if you were to tick boxes, probably had an edge physically. And yet Dirty Hands, Savage Crew made up for it with smarts and working smarter, not harder, and some people in there that had really good life skills, like a Michelle. So, and then it ended up that they could even things out. But I was excited when I saw what happened, and I saw Knuckles do so well. She really had it. I mean, that was hers to win. She messed up by like just a clump of about that much concrete. She had that win. And so she would have got the first pick. Whether she would have picked Scott or not first, I don't know. But I think the teams they're pretty even. I mean, I think you saw that even in the way that the framing, I mean, that after 3.5 hours to be that close, pretty impressive.
Phil, I don't know if you could tell us this, but in season 1, Roofer Lee was like a go-to person for you. Anytime, any challenge, you needed a sound bite. Did you have that in this season of a person who is going to give you just a great comment anytime you go to them?
Yes, I've got, but multiple. And I think the characters overall we've got more extroverts this season.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some introverts. We have some people who are amazing at articulating story in bites, but don't necessarily say so much in scene. They say maybe less in scene, but yeah, I've got lots of people to lean on for fun times and for good banter. I mean, just Freight Train and Selly alone, the two of them, and then Meryl, they will become more and more interesting as time goes on. I will tell you that the season overall is a lot tougher. It's a lot more physical. I mean, you see that right out of the gate. We did amp up the toughness, if you like. It was a tough season, very tough.
But did you amp up the nails?
Much bigger nails.
Much giant nails.
Railroad spikes.
If I'd really thought about it, you should have sent the calendar out with a nail.
Mm-hmm.
A hammer.
Branded nail.
Yeah, like a hammer and nail. Please nail in your calendar wherever you see fit.
And the level also. I guess
Yeah.
the gravity takes care of that if you put the nail in the right spot.
Exactly.
But you don't know. You
Put
don't
it
know
in the middle.
There's no
little
hole.
Punch hole.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Yeah, no,
at least
you're right.
at least send us a roll of duct tape.
So there was no hole at the top of the calendar?
There is no hole at the top of the calendar.
So
That's
did
fine.
you?
You know what? This show teaches you. You make your own
Yeah.
hole.
Mhm.
You know.
Measure twice and then cut our own holes.
I mean, I
Right.
solved the problem. I used my range of life
Yes.
experience to apply problem solving skills. It's taken care of.
you kicked into your Michelle. You
Mhm.
I worked smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
You did. And I'm surprised, but I guess maybe that's exactly what maybe that was the whole point, was to force people to have to think
Mhm.
about how they were going to solve the hanging issue.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it puts you in the right mindset to approach the program.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What did you think overall, like mixing the 2 seasons? Did you like that we did that instead of like just focusing on season 2?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once
was great.
you've now had Savage Crew and Dirty Hands combined for like this legacy, like, yeah, sure. It makes a lot of sense now.
And one of the coolest things was that Linda on Dirty Hands reached out to Knuckles on Dirty Hands, and the two of them got together and put together a fitness program for women in the trades.
Oh.
They'd never met each other. They just were associated by being part of Dirty Hands. And now they've formed this friendship and this bond. And so online, season 1 Dirty Hands and Savage Crew teams are connecting
Mhm.
and they're building this legacy. And so that was the intention. You just don't know, didn't know whether it was going to work. But my whole thing was, because I was reading some comments from people, but my whole thing was, season 22 of Survivor, do we remember what the tribe names were?
Don't ask
I guess,
us.
almost
Those are
made
the wrong
Terra.
people to. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Don't
mean
ask
you
those
guys
two.
ask normal people? Yeah.
Do you guys watch Survivor?
A little bit.
Familiar.
A little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay, so
Smith.
can
Is
you
that show still on?
can you name half a dozen? I mean, 40 seasons, right? So 80 tribes, is that right?
530 contestants.
Mhm.
Okay, so 80 tribes and 40 seasons, is that correct?
More than that.
Well, yeah. Sometimes they have 3 tribes.
Okay,
First
so-
tribe names.
Yeah, there's
So
at
let's
least
call
3
it-
tribe names per season.
Okay, so let's say over 100
Yeah.
tribe names. Could you name 6?
Phil, you are making a very good point, but you are talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, this
Again,
is
No,
the
no, no,
wrong-
but I'm just saying.
Could the average
I
person
think
normies,
he's saying the
they
royal
could
you,
not.
not necessarily us.
Yeah.
Could the
I'm-
3
I'm
of
not
us, I think we
saying-
could name them all.
Okay, so that's a serious question. Like, could a Survivor fan, like a big Survivor fan, name all of the 100-something tribes?
No.
No,
No.
exactly.
I don't
Okay.
even
No,
think Mike
you'd
could.
have to be
Yeah.
Rob or Mike to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I guess my thing is they're wearing the same uniforms. Like we couldn't reinvent the look. We love working with Carhartt and we love those distinctive looks. So then it'd be kind of weird. Like you're wearing a New York Yankees uniform, but you call them something else. Like
I call them something else.
yeah. You know what I'm
Hashtag
saying?
Mets
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the idea, was that you wear that uniform, which in a way it is a uniform, right?
Yeah.
And now you're a part of something that lives on past you, and other people, new recruits come in.
Yeah.
That was kind of the intent, whether you like it or not. Okay.
Yes. Phil, can we ask you that you teased what was coming up in next week's episode? And I thought that this was, a very interesting way that you described what was coming up next week.
Come back. We're going to hit it hard. It's going to get wild. It's going to get wet and wild tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
A wet
gonna
and
get
wild
wet.
challenge.
It's going to get wet and wild. Next week on Tough as Nails.
It's not going to be any slime eels, right?
There might be.
Yeah, I think that might be the slime eels that were mentioned, because I'm pretty sure next week's episode, from what I saw, is called like they're boogers and something. So I'm assuming that I think we're getting aquatic next week.
Well, we might be getting
Wet and wild.
Rob,
On
please
Tough
clip
as
this.
Nails.
Please clip it. Put it in the soundboard. It's happening.
It's got to go in the app.
Yes. In a world of wonder. Next week on Tough as Nails, we get wet and wild.
Is this slowly segued into like Phil's voiceover reel by the end
I
of this
don't know.
podcast?
You guys letting me go, and I'm just like,
We're
I
happy to
think
let
I'm
you go
punch
here.
drunk. So anyway, no, it's gonna be it's a good one. And it's tough. It's another one that goes on for a long time. The sun starts to set. In fact, it does set on us in the second episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
Couple of long days.
Yeah. I saw those slime eels in the teaser.
Yes, you would have seen the slime eels in the teaser, and you would have
I
seen
didn't know that was a thing, to be fair.
the slime eels.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob hates slime to begin with, so throw an eel on top of that, and that's no
Well,
good.
you are going to see slime in a whole new way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be
A
different.
new
So
spin
listen-
on slime. Yes.
Have we finished the main meal? Now, is this where I like leave, is this where I get up from the table and do an Irish goodbye, and then you guys carry on and have the real talk that the team really wants to hear, where you guys get real? Okay, now that
Oh,
Phil's gone.
I'm literally dropping off right now to go back to work. So
Yeah.
Oh, you are dropping. You are leaving.
Literally, yes.
No,
I'm
oh.
Irish goodbye. I'm upstaging you, Phil. I'm out.
Oh, now are you going? Is this about going to some other show?
No, this is about going to my real job that I actually get a paycheck for.
Got it. Okay, well, I probably should do the same because I also have a real job that I actually get paid for.
Okay. Well, Phil, anytime you want to pop in, we love to hear from you. Don't listen to the haters.
Our
Don't-
garage door is open.
Yes.
Your
pop
garage
in
door is open. Thank
anytime.
you. Your microphone is ready, or my microphone is ready. All right. Well, I'll leave the lights that I have here. I'll leave them set up, and I'll see how everybody in the production reacts, and I'll take a vote on the next all story meeting and see where I've landed with everybody.
If we are allowed to vote, we vote. We want you back every week.
Okay. Well, I'll pull that out as a clip
Yeah.
and give that to
No
them.
pressure.
Feel free to deploy that at any time.
Yeah, and then and Mike and Rob, you guys enjoy ordering dessert, and
We will.
Yeah, I mean, I hear they make great coffees, and
Yes.
so
Mike
order
and
a
I might
coffee.
just split something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could get 2 spoons and one dessert. That's
We're
probably
gonna go Dutch, much like Phil's Jeff Probst impression.
I think it was more German. I think this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to tell you that the tribe is spoken, and I am now putting out your flame.
What's happening?
Yes. Okay. We must go now. Auf Wiedersehen until we
Wiedersehen,
meet
Phil.
again.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay. Take care, Phil. Okay. Jess, I know Jess has to run as well.
All right,
so
Rob, it's just us now.
that's fine. That's fine. How are
This
you,
is the-
Michael?
I'm doing well. That was great. It's so great.
Wet and wild.
Wet, vet, and wild, I guess, to quote Phil's new impression.
Yes.
Now we get to see, I think, an alternate universe where obviously I think the old story, right, is that it was between Phil and Jeff Probst for hosts of Survivor.
Mhm.
I'm imagining if Phil became host of Survivor, he would have had to adapt a German accent, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Okay. Did not expect Phil to go full bloom here on the podcast, but here we are. So
Yeah, I think it's the perfect location to do so, I suppose.
Mike, I don't know if we have that much more to get into from the premiere. It was a lot of getting to know the new cast. Was there anything else that really jumped out at you?
Yeah, so the stories in particular have been very interesting. I mean, so I actually want to talk first about the wardrobe, and I'm sure we'll get into it more when we have Jess back proper. But I think we got to talk about Meryl's shirt here,
Yeah,
especially
Dragon Lady.
as Survivor fans who can name 600 tribes. I
Yeah,
forget.
and Phil was making a very good point. He just happened
No, he
to be
was. I
talking
just think he
to
was more so
crazy
referring
people.
to the royal you than
Yeah.
I think the three of us. And Jordan Kalis do not, use that as a question for this week in Survivor
Wait,
history.
The royal YOU or the royal letter U?
Oh, well, there are millennials and Gen Xers among us. So really
Hmm.
it's a mixed bag, much like mixed concrete. But I forgot if you talked about this with Bryce on It's a Look. But yeah, Meryl has a shirt because I believe the she was the first Black woman to pilot, was it the U2 Dragon Lady? And so
Yeah.
she has a shirt that says Dragon Lady on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a fantastic, I guess she can be a coach in many speakings, but we have the Dragon Slayer, we have the Dragon, now we have the Dragon Lady. The Dragon mythology continues on these shows.
Yeah, Mother of Dragons. Does she go by Dragon Lady? Was that an official nickname for Meryl?
See, I don't know. It didn't seem like they called her that, though maybe they might opt that nickname later on. Because I don't know how you feel about wearing. Is she gonna swaggy see it? Is she gonna wear a shirt with her own nickname on it? I'm not entirely.
I don't know. Mike, did you have any other favorites from the cast? 'Cause I feel like I did have one favorite, and I didn't get to call it out yet.
Well, so I think, whether or not you can say favor or maybe not so, I think we got to talk about Mikey Eyebrows because I could imagine when Phil listed his short list of go-to people, I got to imagine that guy's on the list.
Yeah, Mikey Eyebrows. I think that if I was describing this to a person who did not watch the show, I would say that the situation's dad is on Tough as Nails.
Yeah, imagine the humanization of chicken parmesan, and that is Mikey Eyebrows.
Yeah, I did think that it was interesting that Mikey Eyebrows. I thought that he said, hey, look, I don't have the voice down yet, but I live in, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my 4 kids. This money is, means everything to me. Also, Mikey Eyebrows, I get my eyebrows done all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently, what Phil told me, the origin story of Mikey Eyebrows is that he actually used to be Mikey Unibrow. He used to have one eyebrow, and everyone would sort of like mock him for it. So then he made sure to pay special care to his eyebrows.
Wow. This
And
is like
so-
some like super villain origin story.
I mean, he does have like the Lex Luthor look, right? He has the shaved head. So maybe he's just one step away. I'm glad he went into concrete instead of super villainy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mikey Eyebrows. He is a character, but no, I think my favorite, the one that really popped for me, and when I did the It's a Look with Bryce, where we went through all the pictures, I wasn't getting it, but the person that really surprised me the most was Knuckles. Knuckles was like, oh my God. Like,
I
this
love
is-
Knuckles.
This is, she was like, popped off the screen, and I wasn't getting it from just the still picture, but when you saw her on the show, I thought she was great.
She has this really nice, like positive energy to
Yeah.
her, where she's not exactly completely placid like a Murph, but she still has like a very mellow way of talking. While Mikey Eyebrows is the more
Mhm.
dynamic, she's more the static. But I think she's very smiley. I think she's an absolute badass for working 35 weeks into her pregnancy, I think it was, or something like that, while she was or something like that, while
But
she was on the job.
I thought you said, was it like 35 degrees and 35 weeks pregnant or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. So the number 35 is very important to her. So like being able to do that, working this very intense job while also being a mom, I think she was a really great team leader as well. She does really seem like just the great calm type that
Yeah.
you want. But I think she's also gives some great sound bites as well. You know, when Savage Crew wins, she was the one that's always like, yeah. We'll get him next time, or you know, don't get too cocky, kid.
In fairness, I've never done the chart of weeks pregnant versus degrees, where weeks pregnant is the x-axis and degrees is the y-axis. But I do feel like that you are that's like right around the sweet spot. I mean, I feel like you could be.
I don't know. I
zero-
mean, 35 degrees Fahrenheit is still pretty cold.
Yeah, but what about when you're 0 weeks pregnant and it's 0 degrees, Mike?
Oh yeah. I guess the question is, what if you have to have an equal number of degrees and weeks pregnant? What would you want to be?
I
guess
mean,
the
you might
higher,
get to room temperature, but now you're 72 weeks pregnant. That's not good for anybody. Like
That's
I
a
really
great.
feel
Would you rather give birth in a higher temperature or a higher number of weeks? I'm so glad Jess is missing from this part of the conversation. By the way.
because the good news is I'm minus 2 weeks pregnant. The bad news is I'm freezing.
I will also say a highlight for me. I actually someone who really surprised me. I like Scott.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah, Scott. I feel like that his picture was just like, okay, what is this guy? But he was funny. He was a goof.
Oh yeah, he's a big old goober. He's like a ladder of a goober. And I also loved his look where he has like the bandana, but also the cap on top of the bandana.
Yeah.
So he's almost wearing two pieces of headgear at once. This is also his episode, right? He's the foreman that leads Savage Crew to their victory. But yeah, Scott's got more of a personality, I think, than maybe you would initially think upon first glance of him.
Yeah. Oh, one other observation I had was Swifty. So he said that he's from Chicago, Indiana.
East Chicago, Indiana.
Okay. Which if you're watching from home and you're rooting on Swifty, it's like, okay, hey, look, our guy is there. And then Swifty called his town. It is the worst place in the world to live. He said it's also the best place.
Yeah, I
It
guess
is
it's
the
the
worst
best place
place.
in that it's the worst thing. You know, like, oh, the best thing you can do is break your leg because it really makes you value the idea of walking almost. That it forges you in iron who you are, or steel in this case. But yeah, I do like that. I don't know if he's welcome back in East Chicago, Indiana. I don't know if they're doing a Swifty day anytime soon.
He
Based on
goes
his
into like
comments.
the local bar when they reopen. Like, oh, Swifty. Oh, it's you.
Person who said this is the worst
You
place
said
in
our
the
town
world.
is the worst place in the world to live.
Yeah, though I guess we'd have to check it out. Maybe Swifty is speaking from personal experience. I don't know if it's on any lists in particular, but I also like Swifty saying very simply that tough is Swifty, which I'm assuming is the new show once Swifty takes over as host from Phil and is able to overthrow him.
Any thoughts on Freight Train?
Freight Train actually was a little bit of a purple Freight Train in the brown shirt. I feel like we actually surprisingly did not get that much from Freight Train. The only blip we got was him, essentially calling himself the dispatcher, where he sort of is the middleman between Angel and the rest of Dirty Hands. So hopefully we see more of him because he seemed to be a personality. He seemed to take no umbrage with the fact that he was picked last, or I guess not even picked at all, that he was like by default put on Savage Crew. But I hope we see more of him. It actually looks like he has a bit of a medical scare down the line. So hopefully everything works out well for Freight Train.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Hopefully, everything's gonna be okay. Selly hopefully won't have to like perform
Step in.
any
I
field
will say
duty.
someone else who really hit with me, who I thought really leapt off the screen. I really like Tara, the Merchant Mariner. I love just even her comment about how she came in 6th place and she said, I didn't do half bad. Well, actually, I did a little bit worse than half bad. Was a very fun TV moment, and it seems like she is one of these like Jill of all trades, where it seems like working in the shipyard, she has done literally everything. So I think she could be one of those stealthy, not swifty, undercover, all around performers that could do well in basically every challenge.
Okay. All right, Mike. Anything else from this Toughest Nails season premiere?
No, I thought it was good. Like we said in the very beginning, it felt weird to me that it felt like we were sort of stopping halfway through what would have been a normal round of Toughest Nails. But I guess this is more so like the prologue to the season proper. Like, for example, Rob, I don't know how you haven't watched the season of the challenge, but I know there was like that
I've seen half
special.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that preview special that aired, this is sort of that version of this for Toughest
Yes.
Nails, where it's
I did watch that.
Yeah, where it's introducing the contestants, and then they partake in a little challenge that is not necessarily incidental to everything that's happening in the season, but a good introduction to these people and the team dynamic. It's odd to take off 7 days in between that, but I'm just happy the show is back. I think I forgot, just because of everything going on, how much this show puts a genuine smile on my face between the heartwarming aspects, the people, makes you really value those, those who do those jobs that aren't necessarily talked about, and the stories of everyone. I love the diversity of this cast. Just looking at them and looking at all the stories they have is really incredible. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know them all, since they're all sticking around over the course of the season.
Yeah, it's a fun watch. It's a quick hour when you turn it on. And so very excited to have it back, and excited to be talking about it with you and Jess and Phil and whoever else ends up coming through the podcast door or the window.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we got enough of a window size. We put in all the leading bars or whatever they were called. I've already lost the jargon. I've already moved on to the Wet and Wild aspects of Toughest Nails.
Okay. All right. This week, Mike Bloom, myself, and Frail Mary Krakowski, we talked about, though we might have a great list for the Phil's funniest moments after today, of the Jeff Probst all-time funny moments. We put them into our ranking system that we have been doing here in the Survivor off season. It's called Outwit, Outplay, Outlist. And we put them all on a list, and it's there for you to listen to up at robbinswebsite.com.
It was a really, really fun time. We got into a lot of great debates. We ruminated a lot around some really intentional and unintentional hilarious moments from the host with the most, with or without a Germanic accent. But it's been very fun, and we'll probably have another one of those coming up in a couple of weeks, as well as we sort of meander our way through the concrete that is the Survivor off season at this point.
Yep. And if you missed it on Wednesday night, you could check out my most recent panel discussion. I talked about the blue collars versus the white collars versus the no collars in Survivor Worlds Apart. It is the 35th best season as voted by the fans of Robin's podcast. Spent about 3 hours with Jenny Autumn and Phil Thompson going through everything. Another great Phil that we went through everything from that season, and talked about Worlds Apart. It's fun.
Yeah. And you're gonna keep working through. Time to go to work with another Survivor season the very next week.
Yep. Time to go back to work. Oh wait, hold on. Is that my work whistle? Is it? Yes. Okay.
There
Time to watch the 34th best season of Survivor.
Now, wait, is that an air horn or anything?
No, it was that was a whistle telling me to watch the 34th best season of Survivor Nicaragua, which, if I recall, did get wet and wild at points.
At certain points, yeah. Specifically that torturous challenge where they spun them on a wheel and they had to dunk themselves in the water and spit it into a tube.
I was talking about the time that Fabio went swimming in the pool.
Oh yeah, well that was
wet and wild.
Yes, wet, wild, and yellow in a certain way. And as well, speaking of wet and wild, I know also, Rob, you're taking to the sea to cover Pirate Master.
Pirate Master, yes. I've gone back to watch the 2007 CBS series Pirate Master with Aaron Robertson. We are covering all of that in the month of February on the RHAP rewatch, and I'm going to be recording Chapter 2 of our Pirate Master rewatch, covering episodes 4 through 7. David Bloomberg will join us to tell us why X marks the spot on Pirate Master.
Yeah, why blank walk the plank?
Yes. All right, Mike, what do you have coming up?
Lots of stuff. So I'll keep with the reality TV stuff for now. Of course, Shannon, Gus, and myself are covering season 5 of Survivor South Africa Champions. They bring in sports stars in various fields to not only captain the tribes, but make some guest appearances as well. We just had a big game-changing swap episode. We've got a couple more episodes to cover this coming week. So we've had a lot of fun going back in time to 2014, like you've been doing with Pirate Master, to talk about Survivor South Africa. And then over on post-show recaps, I've done some other time travel. I'm, of course, talking Lost every week with Josh Wigler. Our coverage of The Economist, season 4, episode 3. Saeed Jarrah, the assassin, should be coming out very soon. It's on your hit list. And then, of course, the Bloom Files, myself and my wife, Angela Bloom, talking The X-Files, a very alien-based, kooky episode of The X-Files and the Bloom Files proper, coming to your feeds this weekend. So we'll be doing that. We'll be doing some other stuff on the side. Rob, you and I announced, due to a voluminous request, you and I, probably at the end of this month, beginning of next month, we'll indeed be doing a Brant Steele Survivor Paramountain, where
let's not tell Phil what a Brant Steele is. Might be too embarrassing.
Yeah, then he'll have us really have to list out all the tribes that exist in our Brant Steele.
We'll tell him Brant Steele is when we hang out with Swifty.
Yeah, exactly. But not in East Chicago, Indiana. Stay away from there.
Yeah, we're Brant Steel workers.
Yeah, you know what? That's my tough job now. I'm a Brant Steel worker. I put in
Mike Bloom,
3 hours,
the greatest Brant Steel worker in the business.
Put it in a rough 3 hours at the Brant Steel mill. Sweat off my brow.
Brant Steel mill. Yes. Okay. All right. Mike, this was so much fun. We'll be back every Thursday to talk about Tough as Nails. Let me open up a email address that you can send us in your Tough as Nails questions. Maybe you have a great question to ask Phil. Might be too long for a tweet. We know how closely Phil is paying attention to people on social media. I wanted to tell Phil, Phil, you got to tune out the haters.
Yeah. At this point, I think now you put into practice what some people have put out there. I think the more popular the show becomes, the more it opens it up for the negativity to slip in. So just try to push that away. Sift it through the aggregate.
I believe that the great Seth Godin had said, I think this is a great piece of advice. There's very little you could learn from a 1-star review. Really, like the nuggets are in like the 2 stars, the 3 stars, 4-star reviews, like 5 stars, that very little to take away 1 star. It's like the ones in the middle. That's what we might get on the email.
Yeah, exactly. That's the air in between these flats that when you put up the trusses, if you will. Instead, you want to go for that lumber, the 2-star reviews plus, or the feedback in general. If you have questions like we asked Phil about the production process, what led to this decision, etc., he is more than keen to answer them. Yeah.
So toughaznails@robisawebsite.com if you want to send us in any email. But if you want to leave us any feedback or star ratings over on Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe to our Tough as Nails dedicated podcast feed. Go to robisawebsite.com/toughaznails to get a load of our feed up in the Apple Podcast store, also available on Spotify as well. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.